Yes, y'all. First worked on my
Information is power. Tell the truth. You are listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to his channel. Information is power.
Okay, everybody, this is the Information Man show. Thank you for being here with me, listening to the program. I hope everybody out there is doing well, has had a good week. A lot has gone on. This is a particular topic that I've been wanting to get into for quite some time. There's new things that are happening on the horizon as it relates to black hair. Very important for us to recognize the importance of black hair because let me just say this again. Black hair is very important to focus at this particular time. There's a lot of things going on around this issue. Black people for a long time, we've been discriminated against as it relates to our hair on the job, in schools, institutions, wherever we go. We have been treated and very unfairly as it relates to our hair, our cultural values, ways that we carry ourselves, whether it be braids or the high top fade, whatever it may be. Black hair is a very unique thing. Hair is very important to the culture, the style, the reality of black people. Hair has always been a crowning glory for us, especially for our women. And it's very... a lot of black people have been very much discriminated against on the job. I'm going to keep repeating that. Let me just say here, first of all, that in America, we are culturally conditioned. Okay? We are culturally conditioned to see white as superior and black as inferior. And as a manifestation of that cultural conditioning, we will marginalize, underestimate, and undervalue each other as black people, and white people do it to us as well. This is the reason why, or one of many reasons why, we have colorism, where we get caught up in skin color and tone and light skin versus brown skin versus dark skin and all these sort of things that have origins to the slave plantation experience of our ancestors. Okay? And then, as I said before, white people manifest this cultural conditioning against us in the workplace. Many, many black people over the years, over the decades, have not gotten jobs that they deserved, that they were qualified for because of discrimination against them and the way they wear their hair. Natural hair, although it's trying to make a comeback now, is something that is seen as rebellious, as a in your face, in your eye to the white establishment. When you look at the 60s and the 70s, when black people began to wear afros, and I had an afro as a child. I was born in 1969. I'm 49 years old now. So I wore bell-bottom clothing, and I wore the afro. The afro was always looked at as some sort of, you're being a rebel. You're being militant. It's associated with militancy. And I believe that when black people, and I believe this is facts, I'm going to keep telling the truth.
Tell the truth.
Okay? When black people wear their hair in natural ways, it makes the establishment or white America, it makes other people feel very uncomfortable with us.
Information is power.
Because we're not conforming to the norms and the Eurocentric values and cultural values of American society based on these European values that many of us have been conditioned from the time that we were a child. Now, when you grew up as a child, most of what you saw as a standard of beauty, whether it be black women, and black young men, was a European standard of blonde hair, blue eyes, and fair skin, which is where colorism comes from, because in some ways we've been culturally conditioned to believe that lighter skin is better than darker skin. Now, it goes both ways. You have black women, especially in the 80s, because I'm not a millennial, so I grew up in those early days of the 80s, and I saw how things were happening. You had the El Jabbarge type looking guys that black women coveted. They loved the way they looked, the straight looking hair, the fair skin. And you had black men who also were jockeying or preferring the lighter skinned black woman with the prettiest, what they considered the pretty hair and the lighter skin. And many of us will see that as more women that had that kind of look as more feminine looking as the darker skinned black woman. Now, all of that plays into our psychosis, our pathology that we've grown up with, and into black hair. I remember growing up where you would hear black women say, "Ooh, he gonna have good hair, girl," because maybe she was marrying or having a baby by a guy who was mixed or a light-skinned guy. So light-skinned guys ruled the 80s. And then there was a phenomena, or there was a shift in cultural change within the black community where during the 90s, the sort of a Wesley Snipes, the darker skinned brothers began to get a little bit of love, where black women were saying that darker skinned brothers, or they liked the brothers that were chocolate, that were beautiful, right? And throughout this whole situation, you had black women that were hot combing their hair to make their hair straight, black women that were processing their hair, black men that were processing their hair to make their hair look curly, straight, what have you. Let's take it on back to the conch hairstyle that Malcolm X talked about, where you would go through a process of processing your hair, putting this lye in your hair that would burn your scalp to a certain degree. And I remember growing up as a child that I would see black women go through these processing of their hair, the excruciating process of straightening the hair or making the hair less kinky. And then black women, so often you would see black women dye their hair like a blonde color. And then you see, especially in the 90s, you see black men putting frosty tops, blonde tops on their hair. And then a lot of people think that they're doing it because it's a sign of just trying to be different. A lot of people will justify, men and women, justify engaging and dyeing your hair this way because you want to do something different, something a little bit risque. But a lot of times we forget that a lot of this kind of behavior has its origins in cultural conditioning, that we see that European standard of beauty is seen as more important, and we do things to change ourselves. Now, I know that there are black men and black women who will date different shades of black people. Whether it be, now I have dated women that were brown skin, darker skin tone, fair skin tone, right? Because I like the full spectrum, right? Now, could that be some of the cultural conditioning that's impacting me to say, oh, I like fair skinned women too? Maybe, maybe not. But I know that there are black men who like the rainbow flavor of black women. And what was unique about our race is that we can produce rainbow flavors within our race. A lot of times we assume that if a black person is fairer skinned, that they must have a white mother or a white father. I have seen firsthand with my eyes in my 49 years of living where I've seen two black parents produce a child who is fair skin tone for whatever the reasons. It does happen because we do have it in our genes. We do not have a recessive genes. Black people can produce things. You know that a lot of people don't realize that color comes from black, not white. Okay? So when you look at color spectrums, it comes out of that darkness, that dark matter. So Our hair, as you see on my hair, our hair is God-given. Our hair is dark matter. We should not be ashamed of the kinkiness of our hair. We should not be ashamed of the texture of our hair. I think black women wearing their hair natural is a beautiful thing. I want to see more of it. I'm going to keep it real. I don't want to sound like a whiny guy here, but I personally don't like weaves in a woman's hair. Okay, and there's a lot of brothers out there in YouTube and all around who don't like this as well. Okay, I personally like women who wear their natural hair. Now, whether your hair is short, whether your hair is long, curly, whatever, straight, I like women that rock what they got and rock it well. Because a lot of times, black men in particular, we like a woman that can wear her hair naturally and rock it very naturally as it is. Okay? Believe it or not, there are black men out there who enjoy that. I'm one of them. So, black women, this is a mess. This video, this podcast video is not speaking to anyone else, particularly speaking to black people, black women in particular. I love your natural look. And we as black men love a black woman's natural look. Believe it or not, we have conversations about this. We do like it. And so we're going to celebrate our blackness, what makes us beautiful, whether it be our wide noses, our full lips. The full spectrum of blackness is beautiful. And so I want to say this one thing. There's a lot of changes happening across the land. Here in California where I live, there is a law that has been passed. Let me pull up my volumes. A little bit of music here. I meant to turn that on a little bit earlier, but here in California, there has been a law that has been passed where you cannot discriminate against anyone who has a cultural style of hair, particularly African Americans. Now I'm talking about SB 188, the Bill Crown Act. It's SB. I want everyone to definitely look this up when you have a chance. It's SB. It's Bill SB 188, the Crown Act, which was pushed by a sister who's out of Fresno. She's a state senator who put this bill before the Assembly of California to push forth a law that protects black people in particular, specifically, who have been discriminated on the job due to the hair, or have not gotten hired, or have been mistreated, whether you're going to an institution, a gym, somewhere where you're going socially, where you're not being treated well because of your style of hair, whether you're wearing locks, or you're wearing an afro style of hair, or braids, or cornrows, whatever is cultural norms to black people nowadays. So I'm going to play the audio of this, but before I do that, let me get into this particular audio that I think is very important to start us off about as an issue of black hair. Listen up, folks. I hope you are hearing everything.
Actually, have had a number of different natural hairstyles in the workplace. Locks or dreadlocks, braids, cornrows, afro. And I certainly have felt a level of discomfort in the workplace sometimes. Sometimes from my peers, sometimes from my supervisors. What they're viewing it as something that's unnatural, right? It's unorthodox, I guess you could say. There were a lot of times where comments were made about it being immature hairstyles, or militant hairstyles, or unprofessional.
Well, since I teach, I know that it's in a lot of schools. It goes along with their uniforms. They have certain restrictions that they can and can't do, and hair is one of the big ones. I think of a lot of this whole thing is educating people. It's just educating people on black hair.
Black hair.
Information is power. You are listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to his channel.
Yes, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let me give everybody big ups for supporting the program. And let me make this announcement. You may already know it. I'm also a podcaster, and I'm really putting more effort and time into the quality of my podcast. And what I'm doing here with this video is kind of similar to what I do on my podcast. Okay? And so my podcast is Information Man Podcast, Spreaker, Information Man Show, but it's under the title of Information Man Podcast on Spreaker. And you can catch me on a variety of different platforms. You can catch me on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can catch me on iTunes Podcast, which my man Lions Den set that up. Me and Lions Den every now and then we'll do some podcasts together. You can also catch me on Spotify. If you got Spotify, you can hear my podcast on Spotify. And soon I had to reboot, and I'm waiting for the process to approve me. But I will be on, if you have a Google phone, you have a Droid phone, you can hear me on Google Podcasts or Google Play in their podcasting section. So you can hear me on that, iHeartRadio Podcast, Spotify, hear me on Spreaker. And of course, I will be dropping links into the community tab when it comes to my podcast. I'm going to have, you can check me out. I'll be loading up information there about my podcast I have a third Instagram page, which is called Information Man Podcast 06. You can catch me with information on there. You know, my Instagram is Information Man Show. And in the description of my YouTube videos, in this video, you will see Information Man Podcast link on there. And as well, I will have an Information Man Podcast Facebook page where you can catch my podcast. And my podcast will be different from the YouTube because it will be more radio style. Sound quality will be definitely fantastic. So check that out if you haven't already. I appreciate the support that you've given me so far, folks. And it's been pretty good. So that is my my PA announcement of the show. So let me, before I move on, let me move on to the next segment of where I'm going with the program. Okay. So let's see. I want everyone to definitely listen to this clip. This is Senator Mitchell. She's from California. She's a state senator. She's out of the Fresno, of all places, Fresno. She's out of the Fresno area, and she's responsible for SB 188, the Crown Act, that has made it illegal to discriminate against black people in particularly. And it definitely, other people, as usual, will ride on our coattails because it will be other groups who wear their hair a certain way will benefit, okay? But specifically black people who have been discriminated against in the workplace, wherever we go in the world, and within California in particular, this act protects us. So if you are mistreated on the job, you can file a big-time lawsuit. They can no longer not hire you because of your hairstyle. They can only disqualify you because you don't qualify for the job. So let me go ahead with that segment.
Senator Mitchell. Thank you very much, Madam President. Colleagues, today I'm presenting SB 188, the Crown Act, the act to create a respectful and open workplace for natural hair. Colleagues, the purpose of introducing this bill and bringing it before you today is really twofold. First, to help dispel myths and educate those of you who need it about the unique qualities of black hair, its texture, and the black hair experience. Secondly, it's to challenge common held myths about what constitutes professionalism in the workplace.
Tell the truth.
Until very recently, a Google image search for, quote, unprofessional hairstyles yielded only pictures of black women with their natural hair or wearing braids or twists. Although disheartening, this fact was not very surprising. Eurocentric standards of beauty have established the very underpinnings of what was acceptable and attractive in the media, in academic settings, and in the workplace. And so even though African Americans were no longer explicitly excluded from the workplace, Black features and mannerisms remained unacceptable and, quote, unprofessional. Until recent decades, Black men and women didn't often challenge these standards. They donned or wigs or straightened their hair with harsh chemical relaxers to meet those Eurocentric standards.
That's right.
My colleague from Fresno reminded me about the conch,
You are listening to Information Man.
a
Please
chemical
make sure to
process
subscribe
that
to
many
this
African
channel.
American men wore in the early 20th century.
That's right.
It was a hairstyle that was arduous, dangerous, and frankly not even particularly attractive. For centuries, Black people had no choice but to conform to harsh and expensive standards to change their natural appearance. Some people believe that this is an issue of the past, that we're beyond such outright discrimination based on appearance. And some, quite frankly, aren't quite sure that this is an issue at all. Federal and state law do protect individuals from discrimination based on religious hairstyles and head coverings. However, there are still far too many cases of Black employees and applicants denied employment or promotion, even terminated because of the way they choose to wear their hair. I have heard far too many reports of Black children humiliated and sent home from school because their natural hair was deemed unruly or a distraction to others.
The truth.
Can we truly say that equity exists when our children are denied the right to learn in class because of the characteristics of their hair? Where is the justice when Black men and women are denied access to economic advancement because of their natural appearance? Braids, twists, and locks should also be my protected right to choose. We're talking about hairstyles like mine, quite frankly, which would, without question, fit in an image of professionalism if bias or negative stereotypes were not involved. The supposed race-neutral workplace grooming policies that ban braids, twists, cornrows, or locks may apply to employees or applicants of all races. However, they have a disparate impact on Black men and women. This means that these policies are far more likely to exclude Black people from the workplace than people of any other race. There are those in opposition who believe that the bill will result in frivolous claims that will burden employers, or that the bill will prevent employers from requiring the wearing of hair nets or other protective hair covering. Colleagues, that is not the truth. However, by clarifying that hair texture and hairstyles are tied to racial identity, this bill actually helps make employers aware of traits that have been historically excluded and helps them create grooming policies that will foster inclusion and diversity. SB 188 protects Black employees and students from being forced to conform to a non-inclusive idea of a professional image at the expense of their personal choice. With that, I ask for an aye vote.
Certainly.
I appreciate that.
Would you like to close?
I would. I just wanted to add a point that we as a body consistently show a capacity as members of the Senate to understand and empathize with those who aren't like us, who come from different backgrounds, ethnicities, culture, or religion. I believe that any law, policy, or practice that sanctions a job description that immediately excludes me from a position, not because of my capacity or my capabilities or my experience, but because of my hairstyle choice, is long overdue for reform. So I respectfully ask for your aye vote of SB 188.
Information is power.
So there you have it, SB 188, the Crown Act, was pushed and put into reality by Senator Mitchell, sister out of California in the state assembly here in the beautiful state of California. She represents the Fresno area, of all places, Fresno, which is a farming area out here in California. It's not a big city, but it's a major area where agriculture is king. She put forth this bill, which is a righteous bill, and black people still deal with discrimination around this area, in an area around our hair, all these various things. And as she said there, and you heard, there are some federal protections, but I think it's very important for each state to have their own sort of rules around this issue to protect you, because black people, I wonder I wish I knew the numbers and countless numbers of black folks that have lost job opportunities or were mistreated due to their hairstyle, or when the minute they walked in the door, because you see brothers all the time who wear like a locks style, and they'll have it pulled back and nicely neat. They come in with a nice suit for an interview, and even though they're qualified, much more qualified than maybe their whiter counterpart at times, they may not get the job because they don't have a hairstyle that conforms to Eurocentric views. And you heard what the sister said on there. She was 100% spot on, 100% correct. Okay? She put it where the ghost can get it. She was on the money.
Tell the truth.
So I had to play that because I think it was very important. Let me take a small little break. I'll be right back. I hope you all are enjoying the program so far.
You are listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to his channel. Now, let's get back to the Information Man show.
Okay, Information Man, I'm back. You saw me on the screen. Just took a little small break there. I had to look at some stuff on my computer right here because I have an article that I'm going to bring up as it relates to, let me fix my volumes there. Now sounds a lot better. I'm going to bring up an issue as it relates to New York, what's going on in New York around this issue and why I do that. Let me prepare to go into my clip around this issue. I think this is a very important issue. New York is also considering taking measure, or they have taken measures against people that are discriminated against African-American people as it relates to our hairstyles. And like I said before, hair is very important to our culture, but it seems like amongst many people, black people, historically, everyone is always effing with us, okay? Whether it be people, we're getting shot. Look, recently, I'm going to do a video on this. There was a panhandler. Didn't do anything wrong. He gets shot by a police officer. You've got police officers throwing us on we're being, anything that we do, if it's our hair, if we're minding our own business, barbecuing, if we're going into our own house, we get shot. If we're already in our house, we're getting shot. We're always constantly being picked with. And that does work on our stress, our depression. It affects our mood, because we're always under a constant attack in this society. And this is the reason why black people, black men and women, we have the attitude that we have, because sometimes we just want to be left alone. Okay? Sometimes we would just like to be left alone by society to live our life and do what we like to do as people like anyone else. Okay? I just have to tell the damn truth.
Tell the truth.
Check out this clip.
Starting this week, employers or others targeting people based on their hairstyles will be considered a form of racial discrimination. According to New York Times, the law is designed to stop bias towards Black Americans. The report says violators can be fined up to $250,000.
So as you heard there,
Information is power.
So as you heard there, in New York, they're looking at $250,000 fining people for discrimination. I've got an article here talking about New York Times. I got an article here from the New York Times. I'm going to read it, so bear with me around this issue. Now, this is going on. This is in New York. Now, in New York, they have a commission on human rights, okay? And there is a ban. Their commission came together to come together with, to bring together legally a ban on discrimination based on hairstyle, making it one of the rare municipalities in the country, not exclusive, because I told you California has done its thing too now, where I live. Okay, the municipalities in the country to codify the link between prejudice, personal presentation. What this means, everybody, essentially, is that employees, landlords, schools, okay, principals, school principals and gyms and owners and club managers and other institutions, okay, gatekeepers who engage in persistent forms of racism that render certain judgments of how African Americans wear their hair. That's right.
Tell the truth. Information is power. You are listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to his channel.
It will now be subject to penalties and civil damages should they harass. So if you are in New York and you are harassed by any of these institutions that I just named, they can now be held to penalties, $250,000 penalties, lawsuits, and then the law will protect you in your suit towards these institutions that for a long time have discriminated against Black people who wear their hair naturally, whether it be locks, an afro style, fade style, whatever style that you wear your hair in that is natural. And there ain't nothing wrong, in my opinion, with a natural hairstyle. Okay, so they're looking at penalties, civil damages should you be harassed if you live in a New York area now and be threatened to fire or deny admissions and affiliations to anyone based on particular sets of grooming choices. So if based on your affiliation, your grooming standards, you should not be discriminated against. You cannot be fired because of your grooming standards. Now, of course, that doesn't mean you want to go to work looking like mess. You're going to still be professional. And for the most part, and I've seen it with my own eyes, most Black people who wear their hair natural, they carry themselves very professional, especially if it's a corporate job or there's certain things about being neat. When I go to work, I have to have certain standards. I can't go to work wearing certain sloppy type clothes. I've got to make sure that I keep my hair nice and together, Nothing wrong with that. So you can't do that in New York now. They're going to get all over your ass, okay? Now, while it may defer belief that such clarifications would be needed in such a progressive part of the world at the close of second decade of the 21st century, examples of bias expressed through rules or policies against cornrows, afros, okay, and other means of wearing hair that do not conform to European standards. In fact, don't even, that go against it, okay? Now, curly hair. I'm going to tell the truth here, okay?
Information is power.
Okay. Let me bring up my other value. Oh, yes, I like that. Welcome to the show again, everybody. Okay, curly hair, cod hair, black hair is a trigger. It seems that revealing the bigotry of people who do not understand themselves, bigotry people who just imagine themselves as upholding standards, which are usually European standards, as I said before. Okay? Now let me just read this too. This is important. This is in the New York Times. 2 years ago, for instance, a young black woman working at a Banana Republic in Westchester County was told by a white male manager that her braids were not Banana Republic inappropriate, that they were too unkempt and urban, and that he would not be able to schedule her for more shifts on the job unless she took them out. When she told her manager, when she told the manager that they protect her hair from becoming coarse in cold weather, he suggested that she try some shea butter. He was let go eventually for doing this because he violated the laws in New York currently right now against discrimination against someone because they wear their hair in an ethnic way. Now, let me just say something. In California, where I live at, we have people that are what you call sheiks, and they wear what we call turbans. And you can't discriminate against someone who is chic and wears a turban because that's part of their religious practice. And if you are Jewish, and I know people who are Jewish in America will wear these sort of hats on their head. I don't know the exact name of it, so excuse me. You cannot discriminate against them for wearing such attire on their head, which is part of their religious belief and practices. So there's a protection between people's religious practices. Well, this goes to show you that with black people in our hair, we should be a protective group when it comes to our hair, because for so long we have been discriminated against when it comes to the style of hair that we wear. Now, let me just read this. This is from the New York Times again. More recently, state officials in New York opened a civil rights investigation into the case of black high school wrestler who was told by a referee that his locks violated competition rules. The wrestler Andrew Johnson resigned to getting his hair cut right before a match. He would have otherwise been made to forfeit his match. Now, if you want to check this article out, it's the New York Times article, The Decriminalization of Black Hair. And there's a picture of this young brother getting his dreadlocks cut in the match after the referee said this statement, and they're cutting his hair. It's a damn shame. I'm going to say again, it's a damn shame. This is what goes on in American society, I'm telling you.
Information is power.
Hang on for a minute while I do a few things.
You are listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to this channel. Now, let's get back to the Information Man show.
Okay, we're back. I had to do a few things on my computer here. Now, the commission announced, there's a commission in New York after this situation happened with this young man, there's a commission in New York, which I said before, that announced on a new enforcement guidelines. What are these new enforcement guidelines? It is said that in the span of just the past few months in New York, it had received many complaints of discrimination based on hairstyle, and it is currently investigating. They're currently investigating more cases in New York. Okay, 7 cases, one involving someone who was fired from her job simply for wearing her natural hair down. Can you believe this? For wearing her natural hair down. This is crazy. Unbelievable. Now let me go on to say, while this sort of discrimination and common in the retail sector is hardly exclusive to the sales floor, recently they spoke with a sister. Her name is, I think it's Melissa Jackson, who is a deputy at the Commission on Human Rights, about her own experiences encountering disapproval based on how she wore her hair. This is a woman that's on this commission. How she wore her hair, okay, together during a past professional life, in her past professional life, okay? Several years ago, she worked as a summer associate at a prominent Wall Street law firm, okay, and routinely straightened her hair. Now, this is a problem that a lot of black women and black men in particular, have to straighten their hair and conform to these Euro standards of hairstyles when they're on jobs and they want to wear their hair, what we know as natural. They're being told to conform to this straightening of the hair, okay? She said she went through a period of life wanting to fit in, okay? Wanting to fit in. So she straightened her hair. She straightened her hair. She told me, she said that after she graduated from Columbia Law School and she studied at the London School of Economics, she came back to the firm with less of a desire to conform and decided to get locks, which this is what the sister decided to do. This was hardly welcome, she said. The sister, Melissa Jackson, said that one partner would never talk to her or make eye contact. There was this idea that I had tricked people and would be jeopardizing my career. She said, "Oh," she said, "what are you doing? You should have straightened your hair." This is what Melissa Jackson was told. "My white colleague did not say this to me. It was my black colleague." Black people, this is what I mean by cultural conditioning. We will marginalize ourselves, underestimate ourselves, and undervalue ourselves. White society will do it to us, and black people will do it to themselves as well. This came from her black colleague who had internalized these racist ideas and was afraid of what this being assertive in one's identity would mean. Sister Melissa Jackson said, I left the firm and went to work for a black judge. And this sister later became a commissioner who was involved in passing these mandates in New York as it relates to discrimination towards black people when it comes to our hair, our hairstyle, our cultural norms and fourways around hair. This, I think, is quite interesting.
Information is power.
Information is power, and I'm going to keep it going. Power is what it's about. We always have to speak truth to power in these situations. And what this sister did is she definitely took it upon herself to be about truth and power. Let me go ahead as I get close to the conclusion of this broadcast. Now, she said the ironicness here is that prestigious law firms and big corporations have made efforts to relax the workplace for decades. Okay, this usually plays out in the selective ways for a select group of people. Casual Friday, which gains popularity in the 1990s, where the vehicle by which middle-aged white men could more comfortably be themselves, according to expanding to waistlines, okay, more open vests, wearing jeans to work, looking relaxed, okay. These were baby boomers rebelling in their own minds, who were liberated from the suits that did not speak to who they believed they really were. So when you look at white baby boomers, or white folks who really never wanted to conform to wearing suits themselves, and now they're saying, let's have a casual Friday, let's wear jeans and t-shirts, it's speaking to their culture. It's speaking to the fact that they never wanted to wear suits, right? But when they want to do it, it's okay. When black folks want to be ourselves, it's not okay. The rise of Silicon Valley startup culture gave white men, young white men in particular, even further license to express their identity authentically, okay? When white men began their careers like Mark Zuckerberg, who could walk into a boardroom with jeans on, wearing a hoodie, the style signature that he wants to wear, there's no problem. But how would a young black man be perceived even today in the same situation, style and similar attire, fashion, with his hair, right, in braids, locks, okay? Would he be loved? Would he be looked at as well? Young black men are told to pull up their pants. Personally, I think we should pull up our pants, but young black men are being told to pull up their pants and look responsible, while their white counterparts are not being told to pull up their pants and look responsible. All right? If they want to earn a decent living, young white men have learned that they can rule the world looking like 15-year-olds who have been gaming for the past 36 hours. This is according to the New York Times article that I'm reading, right? Now, when it comes to black men, now look at this. Check this out. The casual workplace is in the end just another manifestation of white privilege. White privilege. White privilege.
Tell the truth.
Another manifestation of white privilege. Okay? In 1992, the city of Santa Cruz, California, I know Santa Cruz very well, I've been there many times, with a population that was 79% white, passed an ordinance or a law that made discrimination against appearing unlawful. And Santa Cruz was the city's surfers and skateboarders and hackers and tattoo artists and people who wear tattoos and piercings, someone through protecting them very long time ago. So white people who are into skateboarding, the tattooings, okay, having this sort of what they call hacker look, hoodie look, whatever, they were protected in Santa Cruz from discrimination against the way they wanted to wear their hair and have their skateboards and all that kind of stuff, right? So white people have always used their white privilege to protect themselves on how they want to dress and look. And they've been able to pass laws or do things in this society to protect their rebellion. When black people wear our hairstyle because we want to be ourselves, we're seen as militant and being rebellious. When white people do it, they're seen as being themselves. And I'm telling you right now, I'm going to always tell the truth. And this is why I'm proud to say that it is a good thing that in California that the SB 188 Crown Act was passed, and what they're doing in New York, and hopefully this will spread across the country. Okay?
Information is power.
I want to thank everybody for listening to the program. Remember, again, check out my podcast as well. on Spreaker and all the other platforms, Spotify, iTunes. It will be on Google Play if you got a Google phone very soon. iHeartRadio podcast. Just check me out on those platforms for the podcast. Thank you, everybody. This is the Information Man Show. Love you all for being here. Love you all. Thank you for being here. With that said, here we go. Goodbye, everybody.
Information is power.
Senator Mitchell. Thank you very much, Madam President. Colleagues, today I'm presenting SB 188, the Crown Act, the act to create a respectful and open workplace for natural hair. Colleagues, the purpose of introducing this bill and bringing it before you today is really twofold. First, to help dispel myths.
Information is power. You are listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to his channel.
Black features and manner. Thank you very much, Madam President. Colleagues, today I'm presenting SB 188, the Crown Act, the act to create a respectful and open workplace for natural hair. Colleagues, the purpose of introducing this bill and bringing it before you today is really twofold. First, to help dispel myths and educate those of you who need it about the unique qualities of black hair, its texture, and the black hair experience. Secondly, it's to challenge common held myths.
Peace, everybody.
I'm high, you used to low tides. Disconnect on the way.